Life check yourself with Michelle Petticola, Grief, Healing, and Living Without Regret. How to transform loss into purpose. Hi, ladies. Welcome back. I'm super excited to be with you. Hi, ladies. Welcome back. I'm super excited because today is a really important episode. I'm here with Dr. Michelle. Okay, we just practiced it. Petticola. Michelle Petticola, is that right?
That's right.
Michelle.
So can I give you a way to remember it so it's easier for you?
Yes, I would love that.
So
and everyone can remember it.
Petticola, Petticola.
Petticola.
Petticola. There you go.
Y'all are never going to forget that now. Dr.
Right.
Michelle Petticola. Who is she? She's an international best-selling author of the book Step Into Your Brilliance, and she's written other books. She's an award-winning filmmaker. Her movie is Secrets of Life and Death. We're going to talk about grief. She's a professional speaker and a life transformation coach. She helps high-achieving midlife women like me. I still pretend I'm in midlife, even though I'm almost 60, who've been thrown off track by a major loss to release their complex grief and transmute it into fuel for achieving their soul's purpose. Using her unique framework, which she calls SERVE, she guides her clients through grief healing, mind reset, and reconnection to their authentic brilliance. This is such an important topic. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited to talk to you.
I was thinking about you yesterday because I just finished this book. It's his fiction, but it's historical fiction. And it's called The Dirt, if anyone's interested in it. But the whole theme is about how people deal with grief. And so in this particular novel, there's an incident that happens to the main character in childhood around a death in her family of her young brother. And the whole book really, Michelle, talks about how this unresolved grief impacts her, how it impacts her mother, how it impacts her father, how it impacts her ability to have relationships. And I was like, oh, this is so great that I'm talking to you because it's just, and these are smart, educated people, right? And so let's just start with, what drew you to do this work with people around this really important topic? Because if you live long enough, you're going to have grief and you're going to have loss.
Well, for a long time, I would have been the last person you ever would think of to be working around grief and loss because I was totally shut down, totally cut off from my emotions. I spent most of my time up in my brain. My brain was fabulous. It entertained me all the time. And I was not aware of my emotions. I was shut off very early in my life because I had what was for me a traumatic experience in the larger scheme of things, a blip. But for me, as a 2-year-old, it was traumatic. So there I am dealing with my mother and father dying 6 months apart. First, my father, who was the sun and moon for me, and then my mother. And I was sitting with my mother in her studio. She was an amazing person for her time. She was a toy designer. And she and my aunt would go to New York and sell their designs to major toy companies. Hasbro, E.G. Dolls, Gund, Sears. I mean, they were amazing, just mind-blowing. And so we're sitting in her studio. And I'm going through her papers. I'm the dutiful daughter. I'm, you want to get something done, then I'm the person.
Right.
So I pick up one of her, at one point she got a Xerox machine and she went bananas on it and she Xeroxed everything. And each one different. So I picked up one and it was one of her designs and I handed it to her and I said, do you need this anymore? And she looks at it and she says, oh, I guess I'll never get to that project. In that moment, I got what deadline really means.
Yes.
And I was speechless. I was stopped in my tracks and I was still shut down a lot with my emotions, or I was not used to them and they were flooding in. So I said, oh, we don't need to deal with this right now. And that moment with my mother that I had craved all my life, because I was the third born, she was overwhelmed. I bonded with my father. That moment was lost forever. She died 2 weeks later.
Oh my gosh. Was she sick?
Yes, I came back to help her finish up business. And I sort of said that my father and mother died 6 months apart. So I came back to help her finish up business.
Oh my gosh. So when she said that, like, I guess I won't get to that. Like, she saw the deadline. It wasn't like, oh, life is ending. It was like, it is ending.
She got off of chemo. She had breast cancer. Second time around, she got off chemo. She couldn't handle the chemo. She said, this is not life. I'm not doing this. And so her time was running out fast.
Yeah.
And she was running as fast as she could to get as much done as she could.
Wow. That's so powerful.
So what did that do to me? Well, I felt huge regret because I didn't take advantage of that moment. But there was nothing in my background to really prepare me at that time to step in. Now I tell everybody that I have contact with that has somebody who's dying, go back. Spend time with them. Do it. Don't wait. They're always saying, well, shouldn't I wait? I'm like, what are you waiting for? Go. So anyway, it woke me up because I thought, here's this woman who is this toy designer. She was like, for me, the poster child of living your life passion.
Yeah. Love that.
And I was the exact opposite. I was a people pleaser. I did everything that everybody else wanted because I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be approved of. I did real well in school. I did whatever anybody wanted. I didn't even know what I wanted. But that woke me up because I said, if she could have regrets, where did that leave me?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. And what were you doing? What were you doing at the time, Michelle?
I was working in a temp job.
Oh my gosh.
And I was doing community access TV.
Okay.
So this moment woke me up. I said, I'm going to make a documentary on death. And it morphed into 3 short documentaries, about 30 minutes each, which, by the way, is a great way to sell it to the universities. One on facing death, one on caregiving, and one on grieving.
Wow.
And that's my series. And different ones have won awards in film festivals.
That is so amazing. And so that wake-up call really allowed you to see that this one thing that we're all trying to avoid talking about, we're trying to avoid, getting there, but we're also avoiding dealing with it, but ultimately it will happen. And so how can you show up, for the people that you love so that nobody has any regrets? I mean, that's what I'm really hearing. That was the lesson your mom taught you.
Well, but also how can you show up for yourself? My purpose in making those films was to wake people up and say, hey, this is happening. This is who we are. This is our legacy. This is where we're going. And if we don't pay attention, it will slip away. You may have heard about the book that was written, The 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The number one regret of the dying is not living a life true to yourself.
Yeah. No one ever says, like, I really wish I would have worked more.
Yeah.
Rarely.
Right. Yeah, really. You can't take any of that with you. The only thing that really counts is being true to yourself and relationships and love with other people.
Wow.
That's the only thing that really matters.
So when you're talking about having people go through, I'm guessing there's like the grief process, then there's like, is the healing of that grief or loss separate, like after you kind of go through the process of grief, or is it happening at the same time?
It's happening. It's like holistic. It's all happening at once.
Right.
I work with women who have complex grief. That means they had something in their childhood that was never healed.
Right.
So it magnifies the impact of the current grief. And the good news is, hey, it will motivate you. It will provide you with the fuel to not only heal this grief, but also the grief in the past, especially if you work with me, because it just comes up. Old stuff always comes up when you're dealing with grief, and it's an opportunity. Or people will just tamp it all down and go on with their lives. But there's a cost to that. You can get sick from that because you're literally holding your emotions in. They don't disappear. They don't kind of evaporate. They're still in the cells of your body. Because grief is a biological response to the loss of a relationship or a significant bond. And the body is trying to get you to do something, which is basically to reconnect.
To deal with it. To be with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so, when my mom died, my kids were young and, but I had gone and done a lot of deep work. And when she told me she had cancer, my first feeling was relief because I had resolved
your issues with her.
My issues with her. And so it wasn't like, oh God, now time is short. I better, I had done that work and we had this amazing year reconnected. And I'll never forget, I saw my mom right after I went to this one experience and she was like, oh my God, you're back. And I was like, you knew I was gone. Right. And so that was such a great foundation. But I was so I was just younger and busier. You know what I mean? It was a very different experience. When my dad died, 8 years later, he also was my moon and stars. We had that bond of being together when he was in the loss of my mom and he had a new relationship. But when I realized he was going to die, and I'm sharing this story because it changed my life, was that I thought I can fight this or I can be in the acceptance of it and actually be in my grief, but also be really present. And I think what you're saying is that I had to figure that out for myself. I had to do the work while I was going through it, right? To be there for myself. But I think the thing is, and this is what I kind of wanted to ask you, why do most people struggle? Because I was there and then my brother was there handling it very differently, not there basically. They're in the same town, but I don't even remember basically being in the room with him at the same time in the hospital. But so one person handles it this way, one person handles it this way. Why? Why do we react so differently?
Well, socialization. It's what we're taught as children about how to handle grief. We're taught from a very early age to grieve alone, to tamp down our emotions, to replace it so we don't have to feel it. I had a friend who lost a dog that she had had for 12 or 13 years, and she was bereft. She went out and got a new dog right away. She thought, oh, well, I don't want to grieve. I don't want to deal with the grief. She got this dog. She's never bonded with it. It's the spitting image of the other dog, but it has a totally different personality, and she has never bonded with it because you can't do that. Not even with a dog.
Not even with a dog. It's when my cat died, it was a year ago. I literally stayed up all night, listening to grief meditations and just crying my eyes out. And then the inclination, I called the person who I got my cat from and I was like, what do you think the existing brother? And she was like, here's the thing. There's one of that cat. There's one soul of that cat. And that bond is really special. And I wouldn't get a cat to try and duplicate that because that is special and may not happen again. Right. But my urge was what your client or your friend was oh, just get another cat. That'll make it go away. No, we can't do that. So we have to realize that it's there and then turn toward it. Is that the best step?
So you had actually said that was you kind of surrendered to the experience. So that's the first letter in my process of serve is surrender.
Okay, great.
You have to surrender to the experience. You have to open up to it and allow it to go through you. There's no magic pill. There's no quick formula. You have to go through the process. And it's good because when you go through the process, you transform.
Yes.
And if you really surrender to it, you transform in a good way because you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah. That is so true. In the end, for me, I'm Jewish, but like there was a priest at the hospital. Like you had to wait for the rabbi, but there's always a priest at a hospital.
Get that.
So I was like, I'll take it. I'll take anyone. I'm like,
yeah,
right. I need anyway. And he just reminded me this thing of like, you know, your dad's physical body is not able to contain his soul anymore. So actually this is this is a winner chicken dinner, because like his big soul and his humor and all that, it just can't do it here. So it's going on. And so there were like all these little pieces, you know, like I sought help from my coach every 20 minutes. I was like, I'm overwhelmed. But then when I got in that moment, I had this experience of like, wow, my dad ushered me into life. And now I literally get to be here for this literal transition where he's like, okay, I'm peacing out. You take over, you know? But I think that if I didn't kind of surrender and do that first step of the S, I would have just been in a puddle being like, whoa, you know, but not there. Is that familiar?
It too.
I know.
There's something that happens when somebody transitions to that other plane that it like, if you were to take a video of it, nothing would happen. But when you're there, everything. It is that moment between this life and the next. And it is so powerful. It will blow your mind. If you're present, if you're really there.
You guys all got to work with Michelle Petticola. So let me ask you this. You talked about complex grief. And I'm just going to throw it all out there because, you know, you're the expert. But so I was talking about this thing with me and my brother. And what happened was my brother ended up really having a hard time in the grief process after, because he had like some resentments toward my mom and he was mad at my dad. And then he made himself mad at everybody because, you know, displaced and all that. And when you were talking about it, I'm like, oh, is that the name of it? Is that what it's called? Complex grief, where you're going back. So I mean, I just see him suffering. So, cause it's not like you can go back and have the conversation, right? Like I got to do with my mom. So what's the next step in the process, especially if it's that complex grief?
Okay, so I want to explain a little bit about what happened to him, because this is kind of crucial, is that he didn't have the permission to grieve. Men in this culture are not given permission to grieve. You're like, amazing. From a very early age, you're taught that if you cry or you allow emotions, you are a sissy or a girl or whatever. So he had that to begin with. And then the next thing is that when you're in grief, it is experienced in the body chemically as a threat to your survival. Because we're social creatures, we wired to bond, we survive better in community. They've done tons of research on that. You break a significant bond and your body's now in fight, flee, freeze. So when he gets mad at everybody, that's fight. And he's got this energy that's got to be released. So a lot of people will turn to anger as a way to let a little bit of steam out of the teapot.
Interesting. Is that why people bicker and fight after people
Absolutely.
die?
And my family, we were at each other like you wouldn't believe after my mother died and after my father. And one of our members of our family broke off from the family completely afterwards. It happens.
It's brutal.
It is brutal because nobody's taught that you actually need to grieve and you need to allow yourself. Had the memorial service, the funeral, like several days after they died, like instantly. Nobody's in a place where they can really appreciate the healing that is available when you do a ceremony like that.
Well, yeah. And also if you're like close to the person, it's a low-key party, right? Like if you're having that's the kind of celebration, end of life you want to have. I remember thinking like, how am I ever going to grieve? Because I'm like so busy writing obituaries and calling, insurance and
getting
canceling
catering to the event.
Yeah, getting catering. Yeah. And so that's really, really normal. So I think so if we talked about men, let's talk about women. So then I guess women are usually in that role probably more often. And then you're just busy, busy, busy. And then you go off and like you're managing all of those aftermaths. And then so it seems like it would be so easy to like skip it and wake up one day and be like,
right.
ugh.
So all that busyness, that's flee. That's flee away from, you stay busy. And a lot of people literally travel to get away from, they think if they go away that they will escape the grief, but they take it in their luggage. It doesn't go away. But that's what that fight, flee, freeze is it just manifests. And the body needs to grieve. And if you don't grieve, then the emotions get stuck in your body. And that's one of the first things I do when I work with people is to help them to release their emotions. And oftentimes it's sufficient for me to just give them permission. When I provide this space and I give them a journey that helps them to go inside their body to find out where it is, because it is somewhere in their body.
Yeah.
Then it will come up. It will emerge. Maybe not the first time, but it'll eventually emerge. And then that provides relief. And as soon as they start to get that relief, it's like, oh my God, suddenly they have all this energy that they didn't have, because if you're busy holding all that emotion down, you're exhausted.
So exhausting. Do you think that if someone goes through this process in the moment, like we were talking about, does it accelerate your healing? Does it allow you to get in past the, those very painful first month, 6 months, year in any accelerated way? Or is the experience of it different because you surrendered and were present, or it doesn't matter? It's the same no matter what?
Well, I think that you have the opportunity to experience more joy in the process and to recognize that there's a sort of ecstatic aspect of dealing with grief. Otherwise, you're fighting against it. I had this one client that I worked with in hospice, and he grieved the loss of his one and only true love. He was Filipino, and he believed that he would never have another wife. And he was constantly despairing that he would hear a radio broadcast or he would read a book and it would be about her disease, and then he would grieve and he would feel like he wasn't getting anywhere. So I said, well, what if instead of looking at it that way, you look at it as your grief is a measurement of your love for this woman.
Yes, I love that.
And so every time you grieve, you know that you're close to her, that you are full of love. Changed him like immediately. He was gone out of the group in a month. He was like, oh, that was exactly what he needed. So in the SERVE system, that's the R, is reframe, is you need to reframe your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitude, your sense of what you're going through. If we think that grieving is bad, then we're going to struggle and fight with it. But if we see it as, yes, we need to get into it, but we also don't want to indulge in it. And
what's the difference? What's the fine line of turning into that like victimized sort of chronic energy?
The chronic. Well, it's the mindset. It's what you're telling yourself in your mind. And what people do is they grieve, and then the mind comes in and imagines all these horrific outcomes. I'll never love again. Nobody ever loves me. I will be miserable. I will be a spinster for whatever, It just, and it makes you feel, and the bad body, every cell in your body is like listening, what? And they get really upset, So your body is really upset and you're miserable, right?
Yeah.
So if you change the story and you see it in a different way, one, which I help people with, is how do you have a relationship with the person that you lost, even though they're no longer in their physical body?
I love that. Do you have explain more if someone doesn't believe, someone might be like, I don't believe in the afterlife. They're gone. They're done. how do you explain
How do I work
this?
with somebody who doesn't believe?
Yeah, which is like, I'm sure very common.
Well, I invite them to imagine that even if that person doesn't exist, because who knows, right? Who does really know?
Yeah.
But imagine that you still have that person in your system because they were part of your life.
Yeah.
And so you can actually meditate, slow down, breathe, and you can hear their voice inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that. Yeah.
So there it is. Who cares whether it's coming from up there or it's coming to, with the memory stuff. It doesn't matter. That's who they are. And so that's the way in which you can access them.
Oh, I love that. And do you recommend, especially, I don't know if it's like more so for complex grief, but that you look at photos? Is that help or does that hurt, or tell stories? Like because I feel like my dad died in 2019. I feel like I'll always be, I don't know, is grieving the right word, but I'll always miss him, always think of him all the time.
Yes.
Is that still grief? Does that go away, or is that just living with the loss of someone?
It's living with the loss of someone. Is it active grieving? In some ways, we always grieve the relationships that we lost, but maybe not as dramatically as in those first few months or years. And so, yes, it's wonderful to look at photographs because it opens our heart, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
To enjoy your memories. And you can feel the love. Why would you deny yourself that?
I know, that's so true.
It's only when we believe that we're not supposed to feel that we say, oh, I can't do that because then it will make me feel bad. But it also makes you feel good. And so what I do, I work with a client and they go through a memory and they feel good and then they go right into feeling bad. And you can see, the way they're thinking, or you can hear the way they're thinking. And I help them to start navigating towards a different way of interpreting, to not beat themselves up, not to look at those things, to look at the positive stuff, because there's so much gold there.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I was thinking when my dad was sick and then it was clear he was going to die, my stepmom, who was a little wacky, but I loved her and my dad loved her. And she said to me, if he dies, I'm going to kill him. But I think about that sometimes and I have these little conversations with him and I'm like, I'm so mad you're gone that, whatever. But it just made me laugh, right? Because it was like, you have that feeling of like, I'm so mad at you that you left. Like, They have, like a lot of the times they don't have a choice. Some people do, but mostly they don't. And so it's like, we have to also, there's anger in there, I would assume. So there's like sadness and there's anger and like, why did you die?
Why did you leave me?
Yeah.
And every time you have to do their job, you're like, you left me with this work. Why did you do that? And so I provide permission. I give the space for you to look at all those feelings. I had another client, we'll call her Marnie. Actually, that's too close to your name. It is
my name. I'm like, wow, you just pulled that one out of the hat? Marnina?
We'll call her Emily.
Yes.
She had a husband who had a stroke, and he was in care for several years, and the money was gushing out of her bank account like a river in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
It was just flying out, and she was afraid she was going to have to go back to work. And so she had this kind of conflict between loving him and wanting him to stay alive and also hoping that he would die before she ran out of money. And so I gave her permission to be able to explore that, because oftentimes we can't think that. Oh, I'm not supposed to be angry at the person who died. I'm not supposed to be angry at my husband who had a stroke because he didn't take care of his health, because that's not fair. But, it's natural.
That's so profound. Because I'm also thinking that when people are sick like that, you almost, when they're declining over time, the grief process is probably long, very, very long, right?
Yes.
Forever long. Yeah. And so what I really want to reflect back to that story is like, calling you or getting help is not something necessarily you would want to wait until that person does transition. You would want to be like, wow, I already started grieving because now there's this, now they don't remember me, now this, now that, because you're grieving the loss of like the future and the now. I have a really good friend going through this right now. It's really hard.
Yes. And I can certainly provide coaching around caregiving as well, because that was my second film, was about caregiving. How do you navigate that? And I've given talks and presentations to a number of groups about that, because that's a very difficult process, that you are simultaneously losing the person you love bit by bit by bit, and you have to be totally present, and you're not sure that you're supposed to be grieving during that time. You certainly don't want to expose them to that, because they have enough on their plate, right? So having somebody that you can talk to about that will give you the space to explore your feelings and release them instead of holding it all in, it's really important.
Yeah. I mean, I just think all the topics we've covered just in, like a half an hour, it's like, and to think that most people just push all this stuff down, don't deal with it. I'm sure if someone's listening and thinking about a loss and you're either like, oh, there was that. Yeah, there's that. Or, I was here for it, because it's so complicated, and yeah, we just don't talk about it. That's why I'm so glad you do what you do and you're here on the show. Okay. Last question. If you think, I want to kind of go back to that complex grief, topic, just, cause I think that there's a lot of people who do have those experiences, right? Where things weren't honky-dory and unresolved, but they're sad. Do you have like a number one sort of tip or piece of advice for someone who's going through that kind of a thing, and how they can start to, I would say, like probably unpack it, take out all the different pieces?
Curiosity. That's the number one tip. So here's the thing, is when you have an early childhood trauma or loss or emotional wound, or, your parents didn't really connect with you, they didn't understand that you need emotional nurturing in order to survive, it impacts all of your life. And it impacted all of my life until I finally woke up. When I was in my 40s, I woke up because both my parents died. And I had actually done some work on myself, but that was the stunner. That was the thing that really woke me up. But if you work on these issues earlier, you might not repeat all these mistakes. I mean, I have a slew of losses I went through, including my first husband abandoning me because I had never dealt with that initial issue of abandonment, which I didn't talk about. But anyway, my father was transferred to Japan when I was 2 years old, and he didn't die, but he was gone long enough that the relationship, the sweet relationship we had, changed. I no longer trusted him. I didn't trust myself. And it reverberated in my relationships throughout my life until I finally did the work. So I'm saying, you can continue the way you are, and most people will, because if your life is okay, they usually accept that. But if you want to work on it, or if you're going into a new relationship and your issue is around abandonment, you might want to work on it. And that's why I worked on it. I was in a new relationship and I saw it and I said, oh my God, if I don't do something about this, I'm going to lose this relationship. It's just, right there.
Yeah, because
I've seen it.
Wherever you go, there you are. And I think what I'm really hearing, you're talking about this there's so much hidden shame about how we, if we're relieved or we're not relieved, or we have unresolved guilt, or how can we not be mad at this person? Like, we're so sad they left, but like also we're supposed to be mad at them. It's like,
yes,
right?
Very
like
complicated.
there's like so many flavors of all of this stuff. So I know, first of all, I'm going to scoot up because I want to make sure that everybody can look at this. But you have a couple of things that are resources. And one of them is you have this a guide called Essentials for Grieving Well.
Yes.
which I think is a really important thing, whether you are in the situation now or you want to bookmark it. I think this is a really, really important gift you can give yourself. And then you also have this really amazing complex grief checklist. Can you just explain what that is? Because I think these signs that your grief is impacting something deeper, I think this is a really important way to kind of close out the conversation.
Yes, yes. So the essentials for grieving well is usually more for people who are in the early phases of grief. It really gives you a very specific guideline of what you need to do. And it also comes with follow-up emails that help you to move forward. But the complex grief is a checklist. It is an assessment that will help you to understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. It's not going to just be, diagnostic, but you will also be able to understand how it's impacting your life. And also that has follow-up emails that will introduce you to my SERVE system and how you can start to you can incorporate them into your life and what you need to do.
Yeah. And I would say that, and I'm looking at the page, like, you may not realize that grief is the reason why you're stuck in different areas of your life. So if you're a person answering like, what's going on here, I would say this is really, really powerful. And then the other thing that I just think is such a tricky topic, and I love that it's the first step, is, people get so confused around surrender, right? Because there's like a biblical sense of surrender. If I surrender, does that mean I give up or I quit? Or how do I be in faith and hope? And so I really, really recommend all of you check this complex grief checklist out. There's a link in the show notes. Just make sure you bookmark it. Make sure you take care of that, because I think it's really, really amazing. Any last words for our audience?
Of course. Every one of you out there is important. You are essential to the whole fabric of this world. And I'm here to encourage you to live your purpose, to totally fulfill who you really are authentically, and not to die with regret. So please step up. That's my purpose. Wake you guys up.
I love this. Wow. They should teach a master class about this, like in college or something. I don't know.
They should. They really should.
I said to my daughter, I got all my stuff out of storage, and I was an avid scrapbooker for like 20 years. So I've detailed every single person, every moment of their life. And so the other day I was like, you're either going to like get all this stuff and be annoyed, or you're going to like love it. And she was like, oh, love it. But I was just thinking, here's your whole life. But I think I want to talk to my kids about this topic. I just think that we avoid it. Our kids don't want to hear it. But it's a really important thing to like address this, learn how to handle it, and teach it, just like you teach negotiation, communication, how to get a job, how to eat healthy. Like, this is a legit emotion. You can't cut it off and be like, I'm not going to do that one in this lifetime. So I'm so, so grateful that you were able to come on the show and share your deep wisdom.
Oh, Marnie, thank you so much. And you asked excellent questions. So I really appreciate it. Yes.
Well, we'll just thank my mom and dad who gave me the wonderful experience of, being able to be present for their transition, so that you and I both can help other people go through that. So to all the angels out there and to all the living, remember, you get one life. So life check yourself while you're here. Absolutely. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Listen, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to know you're not alone, and you don't have to settle for it. I've created a free quiz to help you pinpoint what's draining your energy and exactly how you can fix it. So head over to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com and take the 60-second quiz right now. That's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com. And if you're ready to dive deeper, you can book a free no-obligation consultation at marniebatista.com/ private coaching. That's Marnie, M-A-R-N-I, Batista, B-A-T-T-I-S, as in Sam, T-A.com/private coaching, all one word. Let's take the first step to creating a life you love on your terms. I'm Marnie, and I'll see you next time.